1, 2, 3. Mm-mm. 1, 2, 3. We're just gonna wait for Counselor Randolph. Okay, we'll just wait for Counselor Pelham to pop back on. She's having technical difficulties connecting or staying connected. And then we also have Counselor Randolph we're waiting on, Molly, and Counselor Gore is exempt this evening.
Okay.
Where is let me try Counselor Randolph. I don't know what's going on. Hopefully. I just texted Counselor Randolph, tried to call her. 1 second. All right, I can't get Counselor Randolph on the phone. I don't want to start without her. Maybe we can just go ahead and start and she'll pop on during that.
I texted her, but she hasn't answered.
Yeah, I texted her too, and I called her, and she's not answering. Let's go over. Hopefully she'll log back on. Molly,
Mhm.
I think Counselor Randolph is having technical difficulties.
Okay.
So we're just going to go ahead and start. We have a lot to cover this evening. So if,
Okay.
thank you. Right. Is there a motion to come out of closed meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Vice Mayor, Pro- seconded by Counselor Denton. I don't see any hands for discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Pallam. Counselor Pallam,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pardon,
Yes.
Counselor Denton.
Yes.
Mayor Bennett, you have 5 yes, 1 excused, and 1 technical difficulty.
Okay. Would you
One
please,
app.
will you please read the
Your certification.
yes, ma'am.
Certification pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3712D, where only public business matters, 1, lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and 2, identified in the closed meeting motion discussed in closed meeting. Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Counselor Denton.
Yes.
Mayor Bennett, you have 5 yes.
Okay. Counselor Pelham,
Yes, ma'am.
the appointments.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to reappoint Ms. Frick to the, and appoint Ms. Rita Joyner to the Economic Development Authority.
Counselor Pelham, is it okay to do one each individually?
Yes, ma'am. That's okay. I personally would like to make a motion to reappoint Ms. Frink for the Economic Development Authority.
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Pelham, seconded by Vice Mayor Parton. I don't see any hands for discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Counselor Denton.
Yes.
Mayor Bennett, you have 5 yes and 2 not present. Motion passes.
I would also like to make a motion to appoint Ms. Rita Joyner to the same authority, Economic Development Authority.
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Pelham, seconded by Vice Mayor Parton. Are there any hands? Is there for discussion? I don't see any hands. Roll call.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Counselor Denton.
Yes.
Mayor Bennett, you have 5 yes, 2 absent. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right. I would like to thank everyone and welcome everyone this evening. I would like to call the meeting to order for our regular meeting. Roll call.
Mayor Bennett,
Here.
Vice Mayor Parton,
Here.
Counselor Holloway,
Here.
Counselor Denton,
Here.
Counselor Pelham.
Here.
Mayor Bennett, you have 5 present, 2 absent.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Oh,
Oh, you're back. I'm sorry, Councilor Randolph. Thank you. I didn't see you pop in. There you are. I see you. I apologize. So you have 6 present, 1 absent. And
Thank you, Ms. Bess. At this time, there's a change. The para will be led by Mr. Holloway and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by myself.
May we bow our heads in prayer. God, we are in your presence this evening for the conduction of business for the city of Hopewell. We seek your hand of guidance for each elected official and city employee. May there be unity and progression within our city. May God bless the city of Hopewell and each individual to dwell within. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to amend the agenda?
Yes.
I move that we adopt an amended agenda to include the community center change order request as the new R1 and then move everything else down in subsequent order.
Can I ask for a friendly amendment to that?
What's your amendment?
To Shane, I have a question. I don't know how you do it. I have a question about the minutes from the Historic Preservation Committee. There was some information.
That's on the consent agenda. This is just the regular agenda.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait till I get there then. Second your motion.
Ms. Bess, will you need the motion to be restated?
well, I believe it's just to amend the agenda, to adopt an amended agenda to move the community center request to R1.
Okay.
Correct. And then everything else just follows in subsequent.
Follows. Okay, got it.
My friendly amendment to that is, shouldn't we talk about the budget first as well, so that we don't get into unless we're going to extend the meeting, we know until to 9:30 or 10:30, because we're not going to get to 5. So I would like,
Also, I plan on making a motion to extend the meeting until we get all the business done tonight.
okay, can you just add that in your motion and I'll second it? Agree.
Okay, and to extend the meeting until we complete the new R6, the operating and capital budget resolution.
Second, I agree with that.
Okay,
To,
so motion to adopt the amended agenda to move the community center to R1, having everything else follow, and extend the meeting to complete business through R6.
Correct.
Okay,
thank you. So the motion has been made by Vice Mayor Parton, seconded by Councilor Pelham. I do not see any hands. Roll call, please.
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Councilor Randolph,
Yes.
Councilor Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Councilor Denton.
Yes.
Mayor Bennett, you have 6 yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to amend or adopt the consent agenda?
I would like to amend the consent agenda for discussion on the minutes for the Historical Preservation Committee.
Where would you like that placed?
I just have a question. I mean, as
We're
we,
gonna pull it. We're gonna pull it off of the consent,
Okay.
agenda, and we can put it on as an item.
we place it anywhere.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and put that as R7. Is that okay with you,
Yes, ma'am.
Counselor Pelham? Okay. Second. Motion's been made to amend the consent agenda, adding the Hopewell Preservation Committee meeting minutes as R7. Motion been made by Counselor Pelham, seconded by myself, Mayor Bennett.
Question.
Do you have your, yes, it's up for discussion. Yes, Counselor Randolph?
Why do we have to make it R7? She cannot, so that we can approve the consent agenda. Why can't she just ask her question so we can answer it and approve the consent agenda?
Doesn't want to ask a question. She wants to discuss the minutes.
Oh, I mean, I can discuss it. It doesn't matter. And we can do it right now if you like.
The consent agenda is to,
Just to honest, okay.
the consent agenda is structured in a way that we have reviewed this prior to coming to the meeting. And if there is a question, we're going to pull one of these items from the consent agenda and add it to as our item so that we can discuss that.
So we're just gonna approve the consent agenda minus that item.
Yes, we're going to move it.
Okay, so we are gonna approve the consent agenda
If that
minus that item and do that item last. Okay. And I assume it'll be included in next meeting's consent agenda minutes once we do that. You know, once we have it as R7 and talk about it and resolve it, then those minutes will get approved with the next council meeting's consent agenda minutes.
those minutes will be approved in the R7. We'll just make a motion to approve it.
Okay.
Do I have any hands? No. Okay, roll call, please.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Counselor Randolph,
No.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Counselor Denton.
No.
Mayor Bennett, you have 4 yes, 2 no, motion passes.
Thank you.
Now, question,
Yes, ma'am.
do we have to go back to the agenda? Or does that include R7 now?
We'll include R7. Oh, excuse me. Ms. Robinson has her hand up.
Yes, ma'am. Once an item is taken out of the consent agenda, it's just gone. Any member can take an item out for discussion or to ask question. It's not subject to debate. So now it's R7.
Thank you. Okay, and this evening we have a presentation. Ms. Heather Lynn from Hopewell Downtown Partnership.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for you. So I think most of you are familiar with the partnership, but we are actually celebrating our 10th year this year, which is very exciting. We are a nonprofit that is working to build a healthy, vibrant, and more prosperous central downtown district for the Hopewell community. I'll give you a couple quick updates about downtown, but really what I'm here to talk about tonight is to make some suggestions for how some of the American Rescue Plan funds can be allocated and in a way that will have a very positive impact on downtown and the rest of the business community. So quick updates, we have 2 new businesses opening in downtown. One is the Crystal Luna Company. She's located, if you know where Bobby Brown's Antique Building is, on East Broadway. Jennifer Story opened her shop up about 2 weeks ago. She actually hand makes jewelry and sells crystals, and she uses power tools to make a lot of her jewelry from rocks that she gets shipped in from around the country. So it's pretty neat. I suggest that you go stop by. She'll also make custom pieces for you. And then I think many of you are aware that we still have the yoga studio coming, which is Kelly Skalski, and that's 256 East Broadway. So she is still working on the renovation, but looking to open by the end of the month. We have the Hopewell Farmers Market that is running weekly on Thursday evenings from 5 to 7. So please come join us for those. It's SNAP EBT benefits are welcome. We also are offering Virginia Fresh Mash incentives, which lets you double your SNAP EBT benefits for fruits and vegetables. Our first Third Thursday event will be June 17th. So that's also on East Broadway, but unlike the Hopewell Farmers Market, we're closing down the entire street. We're adding a lot of vendors. We'll have live music, and we're working with the restaurants to extend their patios and ABC licenses so that all alcohol sales will go to our restaurants in downtown. So the topics that I'm going to cover tonight are one, downtown wayfinding or directional signage, streetscape planning, a business investment guide, and then one issue that I would like your thoughts on, which is dormant storefronts in downtown. So before I jump into this, one innovative program that we partnered with the city on for a COVID relief program was the Small Business Marketing Program. We worked with Charlie and Stacy, and with your approval and March's approval, to develop a program that essentially hired 2 marketing firms to work one-on-one with businesses in downtown and outside of downtown. So I was the contact for the downtown portion, and I'm more familiar with the outcomes of the program in relation to downtown. So a couple examples of how CARES funding was used to impact our businesses in an innovative way resulted in a mural and banners at Walker's Gym, a new social media plan for Saucy's Barbecue, a new mural at Roja Taco Joint, an entire website revamp for Haley's Honey Meadery, and new signage. Actually, there's a couple neon signs that you'll see in Gun Cotton windows now. So this program really gave businesses some dedicated time and extra dollars to spend on sprucing up their storefronts. So our first topic that could potentially benefit downtown greatly using American Rescue Plan funds is downtown wayfinding. And by wayfinding, I just mean giving downtown a cohesive look using directional signage. The city actually developed a wayfinding plan with Gallagher and Associates back in 2004. I've been in touch with Gallagher and Associates to try and get an updated estimate, but that would have to come from the actual sign fabricator that the city wants to use. I do know that the last cost estimate for sign fabrication was in 2012, and that estimate covered the entire city, not just downtown, and it was $186,000. Public Works was going to install the signs. My best estimate at this point, by talking to other similarly sized communities, is that we're looking at $60,000 to $70,000 just to do the downtown portion. But again, we would have to get that specific estimate from the fabricator the city wants to use. But I think this could be really, really beneficial for downtown, because at this point, we are starting to get a critical mass of businesses and restaurants. Fortunately, I know Erin's been able to get some new Riverwalk signage going, which is another main attraction that was not, even in people's minds at the time that that original plan was developed. Directional signage is extremely important to creating a welcoming environment and positive visitor experiences. It also is proven to boost local business profits and the use of our local amenities like the waterfront. So just to share some data with you, if you want to get into the number of of individuals that are going by in cars every day that could potentially be coming downtown if they knew where to go. These are some numbers from VDOT. So this runs from 2009 to 2017. I think this is some of the most recent data that we have from them. But if you read through this, it's pretty impressive. And I also have some data from Lamar Advertising that I got for a similar project for advertising that I can share with you another time. But between Main Street and Winston Churchill Drive, you're looking at 10,000 cars driving through on average each day, which is 300,000 cars on average each month, with an average of 1.5 people per vehicle. That's 15,000 people on average a day and 450,000 people a month passing through that could visit downtown and generate revenue. So if we had some really nice wayfinding signage that was cohesive around downtown, I think that that could greatly benefit our businesses and Hopewell in general because of that created revenue. I also have heard from a lot of business owners that people don't know where things are and they're struggling to try and help their customers to get around town. So I think at this point, this would be a really wise use of American Rescue Plan funds. The next topic is a business investment guide. So essentially a business investment guide is a really swanky marketing packet that economic development professionals can share with developers and businesses to say, look, these are all the reasons why choosing Hopewell is going to be good for your business or is going to be a smart financial investment for you. So I've been looking to the historic downtown Emporia, which actually is in Kansas, not the one in Virginia. They've received a lot of accolades through the National Main Street Center for their work. And they've also shared their business investment guide. Theirs is about 25 pages. I did talk to Virginia Gateway Region to try and get an estimate on how much it would cost to create a similar document. And they said that probably a safe estimate is $12,000 to $15,000 because that was about the cost of their annual report. And it has very similar, photos and data in it. So a business investment guide can serve as sort of an evergreen document for probably like 5 years or so. And it's just something nice and polished that we can all share that makes the city look like we're all on the same page about the incentives that the city offers, the incentives that businesses can get because of our being a part of the National Main Street Center. Broadband, for instance, that's a huge attraction now that that's been added around downtown. The riverfront development and the Riverwalk is a huge attraction. So this is just a smart way for us to kind of package Hopewell. Obviously, my focus would be on downtown. If we have someone who moves into the economic development specialist position in the future, they could maybe focus on the remainder of Hopewell. This is a quote from the executive director at Emporia Main Street. So he said, the business investment guide has a tremendous impact on our ability to focus business and community development in a strategic, sustainable manner. Since the development of the guide, Emporia Main Street has been able to more effectively partner with a variety of individuals that now know how to invest in our downtown area, and the results of the implementation of the business investment guide are significant. Downtown Emporia has had $48 million in reinvestment in the last 7 years, and the business investment guide played a significant role in the redevelopment and recruitment process. And you can see this is taken from their guide, and they chose to focus on 8 reasons why you should do business in downtown Emporia. Obviously, we could organize ours in a different way, but they have these 8 different sections, and I think it's pretty effective. I could maybe tackle this myself, but it would take a lot of time and I wouldn't be able to focus on other parts of my job if I was doing that. So I think it's really wise to outsource it to someone that will do a really professional bang up job on it. Another topic is streetscape planning. We've actually been working closely with Tavia and Chris Ward on getting a new streetscape plan developed for downtown. So there's a couple images on this slide. You'll see on the left, this image is East Broadway, and there are tree wells, there are banners, there are hanging baskets, there are brick sidewalks. If you move over to the middle image, you're looking at Route 10 where it hits that Broyhill Alley between East Broadway and East Poitras. And you can see where those brick sidewalks stop abruptly. And pretty much the rest of downtown, kind of away from the library and away from the Beacon and away from East Broadway, is looking more like what you'll see in the final slide. This is right next to the Napa building. Fortunately, we were able to get this customer parking sign taken down, so it does look better. But the difference is pretty stark when you're on different streets in downtown. So at this time, as I mentioned, we've been working with Tavia on this. We have contracted with Landscape Planning and Design Associates, and they are starting the process with us in the coming weeks of consolidating all existing plans for downtown streetscapes, and also looking at public spaces around downtown and seeing how we can use them better for the community. So development is paying for portions of this, and then we're fundraising for the remainder of the entire contract with LPDA. Our hope is that by next year or by the end of the year, we'll have this plan done. And by next year, the Hopewell Downtown Partnership can apply for CDBG funds or some Chesapeake Bay Trust funds to actually implement portions of this plan. And Charlie and March have been very helpful and supportive in us kind of figuring out, how to go about this and how to move forward with streetscape planning in downtown. And we think this would be really beneficial to the city and to downtown if we can get this moving forward. We're only looking at about $6,000 more to fund the remaining portion of this plan, although we do have it rolling at this point. And this picture here actually was taken in November when LPDA first came to Hopewell and did a walking site tour with us. So they've been engaged in trying to work with us for some time. The final topic that I'll cover tonight, we are struggling with, and this isn't just isolated to downtown, but we're struggling with a couple different properties where there's supposedly either a tenant that is a licensed business that is never open or has paper up in the windows, but they're claiming that they have an active tenant in that space. I know that in the municipal code, you can't add any requirements about business hours, but we are trying to be creative and figuring out ways to enforce the people to not use downtown storefronts as storage units, because that's essentially what's happening. And these spaces were all either vacant or as they are in these images prior to COVID. So this is not an outcome of COVID, just to be clear. The text on this page is what we used when speaking with business owners around downtown. We started a small kind of just quiet petition. We didn't do anything big with it, but I just walked around town 1 or 2 days and talked to some of our very active business owners, shared this text with them and told them, look, we don't know exactly where to go with this, but perhaps it would help enforce code to a stronger degree or get us at least some more visible support and peer pressure on these property owners and businesses that are not active. So I have signatures from Wonder City Bakery, Fast Cats, Quick Lunch, Old Dominion, Patty's Irish Pub, Sausage Barbecue, Up in the Hair, Room Escape, and Gun Cotton. And that was kind of just us casually walking around. So the other business owners agree that these spaces are detracting from the overall success of downtown. And I think there is a great amount of support for figuring out a solution with these property owners and with some of these illegitimate tenants. So these stats here are just an example of how much revenue is being lost when you have businesses that are illegitimate or you have vacant storefronts. There's a formula for calculating all this that I can share, but this is actually up on our website. And it just gives you an idea of how much money we're talking about when you have buildings standing vacant like that. I'm not exactly sure what the answer is. I've talked to Smithfield because I heard that they had a an agreement that Downtown Merchants signed before they were allowed to open a business in the historic district, saying that you're required to either be in continuous operation or have a certain number of business hours. Smithfield does not have that. So then I went to Gloucester. Gloucester's experimenting with some things. But I'm wondering if Hopewell can do something creative, or if we can at least look into raising the punishments or the fines against properties that are standing vacant, or against maybe renewing business licenses where the tenants have been illegitimate the whole time and have not fulfilled their lease agreement or the business license requirements. So I'm not sure, when Hopewell would be in a place to also look into a business improvement district for downtown. I think that'll be some time before that would actually generate enough revenue for it to be helpful. But I think that's also a logical step in the coming years. So again, this presentation is more about what I think would be very helpful allocation of American Rescue Plan funds, as well as just kind of an open conversation about these are some things that we're experiencing in downtown that we could use some help with. So I'll stop sharing my screen at this point. I also wanted to mention that obviously priorities of American Rescue Plan funding are the small business grants. I know that's happening no matter what. I believe the legacy is going out soon, but it would be wonderful if we could get some more funding for the facade grant as well. Even if that's not in the budget, perhaps there could be some funds allocated for the property owners that have been waiting on those funds. So I will stop there. And it looks like Debbie Randolph has a question.
Yes, I don't have a question. I just want to thank you for your presentation. I think that the downtown has improved greatly under your supervision since you've been here. You try and bring everybody in and work with everybody, and that was missing prior. And I'm glad to have you on board. And certainly, since the downtown is in my ward, I'm always willing and able to help any way I can. So just contact me and let me know. I tried to get back with you last week, but we missed each other. So I'll be available tomorrow.
Thank you, Councilor Randolph. I really appreciate that.
May I say something as well? I can't find my hand.
Yes, go ahead. And I think Vice Mayor Parton has his hand up too.
Okay, he was going. You can go ahead, Council Pardon. I'll go after him because my hand wasn't up. Well, anyway, I also thank you for the efforts you're making in downtown. I think you are serving in a continuum from the past, from your predecessor. So if you will continue in that vein, and downtown cannot be anything else but successful.
Thank you so much, Councilor Pelham. Thank you. Vice Mayor Parton, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for this great presentation, and also wanted to thank you and really appreciate you coming to City Council and providing us with an update on the Hopewell Downtown Partnership and keeping us informed on all y'all's activities. It's real exciting to see y'all talk about some massive infrastructure improvements and streetscaping and other upgrades that y'all are working towards. And I hope that you'll keep us up to date on this, because this is something that I really do think will definitely help the other half of downtown that hasn't seen any major infrastructure or streetscaping improvements, and really would improve the aesthetics and functional activity in downtown. So keep up the good work. I'm friends with a good number of the business owners in downtown, and they have nothing but wonderful accolades to say for you and the work that you're doing. So keep up the good work, and thank you again very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Parton. And I will say everyone is ecstatic over the alley stormwater drainage project moving forward. So thank you to everyone involved.
Can I speak, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Heather, I would like to thank you for being very active with the Hopewell Downtown Partnership and being an influence and very active in Hopewell and bringing it forward with progression since you've been here. And I would like to thank you for when you came. I mean, you invited all of us to sit down and have an input as to what you were planning to do, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate your enthusiasm for the State of Hopewell. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Holloway. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Miss Heather Lynn. I just love your name. Thank you, Miss Lynn, for being here, everything that you do. Thank you for the presentation and, keeping us abreast of everything that's going on downtown. With that, if there's no other comments or questions of Miss Lynn, I would like to excuse her. Thank you, Miss Lynn, for being here. I mean, you can stay on and, hang out with us tonight. We look forward to having you here again. Thank you for always making the effort to council and let us know exactly what's going on, what you're doing, and the relationships that you're building. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett.
Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, this evening we have a public hearing for the school board appointment.
Mayor Bennett, at this time, I'd like to recuse myself from this public hearing, being that my sister is one of the applicants.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Parton. And you did fill out the form with Miss Bess, and you did talk to me about this earlier. So thank you for declaring that this evening. Okay, so we have the public hearing this evening for the school board appointment. Mr. Altman.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Mayor, members of council, this evening you have a public hearing to consider individuals that are interested in appointment to the Hopewell School Board. I believe the term will begin on July 1st. I think Ms. Best has a list of names of candidates that have submitted for the position. There's an opportunity for anyone that has, if there's a statement to be read, our office hasn't been contacted by anyone that's interested, but you do need to conduct your public hearing this evening. I think in the past, we've read the names of those interested, and then council would need to schedule either a closed session or a special meeting to typically conduct interviews of the candidates before making that appointment. So if you were planning on making your appointment before their next meeting on June 22nd, we just need to know what direction you'd like to go in. And with that, I'd turn it to Ms. Bess, our clerk, to inform council of the names of those that have submitted for interest.
Thank you, Mr. Altman. Council members, I did send you some information before the meeting, and I will go over those names now. So someone who had, those that have posed interest are Deborah E. Marks, Shannon Foskey, Nelson G. Cuffey, and Allison Caitlin Parton. I did send you their TBRs along with their resumes for your review. I have not received any other applications for the position as of the deadline yesterday.
Thank you, Ms. Bess. At this time, I'm going to open the public hearing. I hope that everyone took this in consideration. I'm going to ask you, when I open the public hearing, Ms. Bess, to state the names again and where, just state the names again.
Okay.
For, purposes of documentation. Okay, I'm opening the public hearing. Ms. Bess, will you please state each candidate's name?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Deborah E. Marks is the first one. The second one, Shannon Foskey. The third one would be Nelson G. Cuffey. And the fourth one would be Allison Caitlin Parton. And those are the four that I have received as of yesterday.
Thank you, Ms. Bess. I close the public hearing. And at this time, I will ask the council if they would like to discuss this in closed session at this time. And if so, if you use the motion, please use 2.2-3711A1.
I would like to say that we make a motion so that Ms. Bess can schedule the necessary interview with the candidates. And thereafter, we'll go into closed session or continue closed session to speak about the candidates.
Councilor Pelham, do you want to discuss the candidates this evening?
No.
Or would you like to have the interview first?
I would like to have the interviews first, unless.
Are you okay if we ask Ms. Bess to, if your motion entails to ask Ms. Bess to set up interviews?
Well, if the motion passes, yes. When someone has a substance, so it's not gonna pass. So.
Okay. Is there a second? A motion's been made by Councilor Pelham to task Ms. Bess to create interview appointments. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Councilor Pelham, seconded by Councilor Holloway. Vice Mayor Parton, you have your hand up for discussion.
I apologize. That was just me raising my hand to recuse myself.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands for discussion.
I'm trying to get it up.
Okay.
I can't, can you see it?
I can see it. Yes.
I can't tell whether it's up or not. All right, it's to schedule the appointment for when?
Well, I think we'll discuss that. Ms. Bess will correspond with us over email.
Yes, I'll be glad to do that. Set up the appointments and work it out that everyone can, it will be able to join. I'll do a poll.
Does that satisfy your answer, Councilor Denton?
Yeah, I just didn't know if we were going to try and have a special meeting or if this was going to be done before the next meeting, or are we going to, I'm just trying to see what the plan is.
Madam Mayor, may I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
I think it would need to be done before the June 22nd meeting, because I think that's the meeting that you guys would need to have already done the interviews and, picked a candidate so that because they would need to start by July 1. So July 22nd would probably be the last opportunity to vote on it. So I would plan on trying to schedule the meeting and adhering to everyone's schedules before the June 22nd meeting, the interviews, not the meeting, excuse me.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Counselor Randolph?
My only question is, are these going to be Zoom meetings for the interviews, or are we going to try and get together, or have we decided that yet?
I'm not sure if we'll be back in
Will you-
person. That's up to, I guess, Mr. Altman.
This is going to be prior to the
The
Mr.
return date.
When will we, I have a question for Mr. Altman. When are we opening the doors for the public?
We will be open to the public Monday, the 14th. So next week, we will be open to the public. At that point in time, should council choose, you could come back into council chambers and conduct your meetings. Until that point, until Governor Northam lifts his emergency declaration, which we anticipate will be June 30th, barring any changes that he makes. Once he does that, I believe the allowance for virtual meetings will go away at that point in time, and you will need to have a quorum in place in council chambers. So July, if all goes as planned, the July 13th meeting, we would be in council chambers, but council has the decision and discretion. If you choose to have your first meeting in open session in council chambers on the 22nd, you certainly can do that. Or if you want to conduct interviews in person, the building is open to the public as of the 14th, and council can do that should you choose.
Counselor Cullum, would you like to have this meeting as I'm asked the will of council to have this meeting as a virtual. Counselor Randolph, I will definitely lean towards having the meeting virtually, the interviews virtually.
Yes, that's really definitely okay with me.
Okay.
You said okay, Ms. Holloway? I'm sorry.
Yes, yes. Mhm.
All right. I don't see any other hands. Ms. Bess, are you clear with the motion?
Yes, the motion is to task Ms. Best with setting up the interviews for the 4 candidates for council members before June 22nd via Zoom.
Thank you, Ms. Bess.
That was only 3 people that agreed. Don't we need 4?
Me?
You, Miss Holloway, Miss Pelham. Who's the 4th? I mean, I don't care who it is. We just need to make it official that there were 4 people saying yes to Zoom.
Okay, so Vice Mayor Parton has recused himself.
Right.
So we are the majority.
Okay, good. Just want to make it official. We need to start making sure that we've got, enough votes to approve something every time we kind of do that. So thank you for pointing that out. So I'm fine with it being Zoom, and just wanted to make sure we had the votes for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Randolph. All right, roll call, please.
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Councilor Randolph,
Yes.
Councilor Holloway,
Yes.
Councilor Denton.
Yes. Yeah.
Mayor, thank you. Mayor Bennett, you have 5 yes, 5 ayes, and motion passes.
Thank you. Right. Moving on to the reports of the city manager, I will now turn it over to Mr. Altman.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett. Mayor Bennett, members of council, our item this evening is the creation of the Hopewell Broadband Authority.
Oh, Mr. Altman, we made an amendment to the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
The community center as the first item.
The community center roof. Okay, that's right. So the first item this evening is the community center roof consideration to modify the contract that we council approved. As we kind of discussed back when we brought forth the request on the roofing contract, we knew that there were going to be things that we were going to find once we took the roof off. And we have found things, which has required some change orders. The first change order we had, the original contract was $277,471. The first change order we had was a $68,187 change order, which was under the 25% of the cost of the contract. So once we hit 25%, those change orders after that point in time, we need to come back to council for approval. So we have two change orders for consideration this evening for authorization to move forward with. Those at $17,900 and the second for $23,440.23. I have Mr. Reed Millers here this evening to discuss the project and the challenges that we've encountered as a result of taking the roof off and having to replace it. So at that point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Reed Miller.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Altman. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. First of all, thank you for the accommodation with the agenda tonight. I hate to have an item have to be added at the last minute, but unfortunately this project and the timeline just did not work well with the agenda packet creation timeline. So nonetheless, here we are. We did run into several significant issues with the roof. None that could really be found until we really got in there and started working, particularly with the first two that are larger numbers. Those are asbestos abatement related change orders. So there are some layers of roofing from the original roof that was left on the building and re-roofed, and now we're replacing that re-roof section, but taking the original section off as well. So asbestos containing material was present. And of course, as you're probably aware, to remove that kind of material safely, it is a much more delicate process. The handling is far more delicate. Nothing can be thrown off the roof. Everything has to be bagged. All the workers have to wear special protective clothing and other PPE, and then everything has to be disposed of in a proper container. So that was essentially change order one, and then a small addition for the pool storage area on the back of the building that was not included for some reason at the beginning. That was a simple oversight, but that's a relatively small part of that. The second change order, which puts us over that 25% limit, is related to asbestos abatement, additional asbestos abatement found in another layer of the roof that was not detected with the first sampling that was taken by our consultant and the roofing contractor. And then the third is just a simple kind of a strange building phenomenon. Typically, buildings with flat roofs like we have a nailing board around the perimeter that the roofing membrane is attached to. Our building is absent that nailing board, so there's no way to fasten it around the edges without adding one. So that's what that final smaller, approximately $2,300 change order at the number 3 is for. So we are here requesting your authorization to move forward with the change orders, which would change the total dollar amount of the project contract that you already approved at a lesser amount. And that essentially is here what we're asking for this evening. And I am happy to answer any questions about the project or the change orders if anyone has them.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Counselor Pelham.
Yeah, the question is to the attorney though. Based on the information that you sent us about the statutory requirement about when change orders are over $25,000, do we have to do anything different except to vote on this item? Madam Attorney?
Can you hear me?
Ms. Robinson.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. No, there's nothing more you have to do. By your vote, you will approve the modifications, including the increase in the contract amount.
And Mr. Reed Miller, there was no anticipation of this when did they have a chance to pre-review the roof at all?
So the timeline on the way it all came together was a little bit challenging. When we brought the initial contract to you all, we were essentially hustling to get that approved so work could begin. We obviously didn't want work to start without a valid approved contract in place. Some core samples were taken before work started, but not early enough for us to detect anything before the original contract was approved. Then when the first core came back and showed that there was a possible asbestos containing layer, a significant amount of additional testing was done, which involves them taking essentially like core samples from the roofing material and sending them to an independent lab, which analyzes each different material to determine if it's containing asbestos or not. Once we got back that more expansive testing result, we realized the extent of the asbestos containing material, but that was after you all had already approved the contract. But I guess the good news was that initial report, the abatement cost was under that 25% or $50,000, the lesser of the two. It was under that, so we could, authorize, Mr. Altman could authorize that change order. We could continue the project along without any further city council action. But then with the additional two change orders, that of course put us over the limit, and here we are. So we knew that there was a possibility, but unfortunately the timeline with the testing and once we got the results back and when we needed to get the contract in place, they just simply didn't align because, keep in mind, the longer we waited on the project, the more rainwater that was getting in the building causing damage. So we were very anxious to get this project started as quickly as possible.
Oh, okay. So is there any additional change orders from this point? Even if they're under $25,000, you still have to bring it back to council, correct?
I believe that's correct. I learned, and part of this issue is I misinterpreted the policy and was working under the assumption that it was each individual change order, but it is in fact cumulative change orders. So anything additional would require additional city council action. After speaking with the consultant and the contractor and what they've seen, to date with the work that they've completed, they do not anticipate any additional change orders required to complete the project. However, I want to be cautious in saying that and just iterate that anything is possible. So they haven't completed the entire project. They still have roofing to tear off, and essentially with roofing, you really don't know what you're dealing with until you get to that tear off stage. However, all indicators point to, we've addressed the major concerns. We have found everything that needs to be addressed via change order, but I want to make sure everybody understands that doesn't eliminate completely the possibility of another change order being necessary should they run into something unforeseen like these first three issues.
And who did anyone else verify the asbestos it came from the testing, you said?
That's correct. So the consultant that works for us on our behalf, an independent consultant, she collected samples and turned them in for analysis. And then the roofing contractor essentially collected their own samples and turned them in for analysis. And of course, those results had to be shared with the insurance company because, keep in mind, this is all part of an insurance claim from the damage last year. So essentially, everyone shared everyone's results with each other to confirm that everyone had the same information. The insurance company has verified that this would all be covered as part of the claim, as part of the project. So we've submitted all of the change order documentation to them and testing results to them as well. So it's kind of like each party does their own individual sampling and gets the results, and then essentially compares it to make sure everybody got the same thing, and that is the situation that we have.
So we're going to approve this and then get reimbursed from the insurance company?
That's correct. So to date, we have not spent anything other than what they have paid us. However, they have not paid out the full amount of the claim yet. So they are processing additional payments to us that we would receive, and then essentially use those funds to pay the roofing contractor for the remainder of the work.
So the city won't be out any money so far.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Oh, go
Madam
ahead.
Mayor, may I speak?
Yes.
I just want to know, I didn't know if you want to let everyone know that we're following Rule 203 tonight. I don't know if everyone was made aware of that. So to be fair, I didn't know if you just wanted to mention that to council.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the rule of, two questions or 3 minutes, unless you make a point of information.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bess. And moving forward, we'll take that all into consideration. And thank you, Ms. Bess, for keeping us streamlining the process. Vice Mayor Parton.
Thank you. I move that we approve the city manager to authorize the modification of the construction contract at the community center to include 3 change orders in the amount of $88,427.33 with a total contract value of $365,000. Excuse me, $365,898.23.
Second.
Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Parton, seconded by Councillor Denton. Any hands for discussion? Are the hands I see up from earlier, or is there another question?
I have a question. I'd like to make an amendment, or either a friendly amendment to say not the city manager to approve to administer it. We approving the execution of the money. Would that be the appropriate motion, instead of saying approving the actual appropriation? That's what this vote would do, not for the city manager to approve the appropriation. Is the verbiage okay, Madam Attorney?
Can Miss Robinson, can I attempt the answer?
Sure.
It goes to the chair first.
Okay. So your question, Councillor Pelham, is to a friendly amendment to approve the appropriation be done by the city manager, to give him the authority?
Not to give, the way it sounds to me is reading is that we're giving him the approval authority to appropriate this money when that he's not in a position to do that. But if
Okay.
it's-
Yes, the reason why we're here this evening is because there's already a contract in place. It went above the threshold of the city manager's approval, which it needs council's approval. So you are correct. It does need to state that council is approving this appropriation. Am I on point with that, Ms. Robinson?
You're approving.
Yes, ma'am. I think the intent of the motion was also, from my view, clear. And so I thought it was fine, but you can further refine it if that's the will of the body.
No, if it meets the criteria, then that's all I wanted, but it sounds like we're here to be the appropriating authority. And it seems like we've done it to go back to let him be the authority, so. But if you say it's okay, it's okay. Legally, that's all I was concerned about.
Yeah, as presented, it was simply to approve the change order, which authorizes the payment of more money. And there really isn't, as I'm understanding it, an appropriation at all. It's simply sort of laying the groundwork for the insurance company to cover that expense. I'll verify that with Mr. Reed Miller. If I misunderstood him, I need that correction, but
He
there
said
really, there really isn't an appropriation here.
That's correct, Mrs. Robinson. So essentially what we did initially, we came to council to have the city manager authorized to execute the contract in the original dollar amount. And essentially we are here tonight asking for that authorization to be extended to include these 3 change orders in the dollar amount presented. So I believe the original motion conveys that intent. And that would certainly allow us to move forward as needed with Mr. Altman executing the change orders and keeping the work going.
I say with that, I withdraw my amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Best, will you please restate the motion?
Yes, to approve the city manager to authorize the modification of the construction contract at the community center to include 3 change orders in the amount of $88,427.33 with a total value of $365,898.23.
Thank you. That motion was made by Vice Mayor Parton and seconded by Councilor Denton. I don't see any more hands for discussion. Roll call.
Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Councilor Randolph,
Yes.
Councilor Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Councilor Denton.
Yes,
Mayor Bennett, you have 6 yes, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Altman?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all very much for that. So we can keep the project moving and get the community center back under roof. The second item this evening for consideration is the Hopewell Broadband Authority. The municipal broadband, with our new broadband internet access owned by a public entity, services are often provided, either in full or partially by governments. So Dr. Manker has been working with Ms. Robinson on the creation of the Broadband Authority as pursuant to Section 15.2 300B of the state code. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Manker and Ms. Robinson to discuss and provide council with an overview.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I'm actually going to turn it over to Ms. Robinson to explain why we need the Broadband Authority and to go through the actual resolution.
Thank you, Madam Director. Before you is a resolution to create the Hopewell Broadband Authority. The body itself, not necessarily the name, is required by statute. As you know, in Virginia, local governments can only do what has been expressly authorized by the General Assembly, and pursuant to the code section that has been cited, a locality cannot establish an internet, provide for internet services, except in a limited capacity unless it goes through certain procedures. Those procedures coupled with the requirements of the SCC requires the creation of a broadband authority. What we have here before you tonight in form is prospective legislation. It's in draft form, so council can make changes to that tonight if you so choose. But the form is one that has been utilized in other localities. And it established a broadband authority, which will act basically as sort of the governing body for the purposes of creating this telecommunication network throughout the city. If you go through the document, the initial membership of the authority will be members of council. We've done that primarily for the convenience of the city so that we don't have a whole lot of time committed to determining who else would be an appropriate member to the authority. If you look through the document, you will also see that the terms of each member really are coinciding with the terms of office of each member of council. So the initial terms will not be uniformly 4 years, though once we get past the first initial membership, terms are for 4-year terms. I think that is it in terms of an overview. I think in terms of determining how much information is probably necessary at this point, I'll leave that to council to decide by the questions. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Vice Mayor Parton? All right.
Yes, I move that we approve the resolution creating the Hopewell Broadband Authority.
Second.
Motion's been made by Vice Mayor Parton, seconded by Councilor Randolph. Councilor Randolph, you do have your hand up for a discussion.
No, that was to make the motion, but Mr. Parton beat me to it.
Thank you. Roll call, please. Ms. Bess? I think she may have.
Sorry, I muted myself. I'm sorry. Councilor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Councilor Randolph,
Yes.
Councilor Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Parton,
Yes.
Councilor Denton.
Yes.
Mayor Bennett, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Mr. Altman, I'll turn it right back to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The third item on our agenda this evening is changes to the city guidelines with regarding to reopening city buildings. Just for no act, we're not requesting any action this evening, just wanted to inform council and the community of the steps that we're taking to reopen city buildings. So Governor Northam announced several changes that would go into effect, some immediately and some that went into effect on Friday, May 28th, in an announcement that he made earlier that week. Effective immediately at that time, all fully vaccinated individuals weren't required to wear masks outdoors and in most indoor settings. And then additionally, effective May 28th, they reduced all the physical and social distancing requirements and capacity restrictions were lifted. So we're returning back to normal. He also stated, as we kind of discussed a little earlier, that the statewide declaration of emergency would remain in effect until at least June 30th, 2021. So our local state of emergency will remain in effect until, if indeed that's the case, and it expires on the 30th, then at our meeting in July the 13th, which will be the next council meeting, we'll have on the agenda to end our local emergency also. If the governor for some reason decides to extend, then we would extend. How this all affects the city's policies and guidelines that we've adopted during the COVID-19 pandemic and as it relates to reopening buildings. So as of my memo that I sent, an email that we sent to staff, effective immediately, and this was back on June 3rd, fully vaccinated employees, and fully vaccinated means you've got both shots, but 2 weeks since your final dose, are no longer required to wear a mask inside city facilities. Employees who have not been fully vaccinated, including those who have not finished the 2-week waiting period, are strongly encouraged to still wear a mask when physical distancing from others cannot be maintained. Employees who are no longer required to wear masks may continue to wear masks when interacting with the public, and that will be their option. Any employee who chooses to continue to wear a mask in an office setting is permitted to do so, even if that employee is not required to do so. Effective May 28th, all in-person meetings, whether they are in the same department or with other city employees and from other departments and buildings, could be held in conference room capacities or reinstated to pre-COVID levels. Effective June 1st, the daily temperature checks that we were doing for city employees coming into the building and citizens coming in by appointment were ceased. All employees are expected to continue to self-monitor their temperature prior to coming to work. Practice those. Essentially what we're doing is returning to the conditions we had at the very beginning of the pandemic over a year ago. Self-monitor your symptoms, wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, follow those CDC guidelines that were there in the very beginning. Effective June 7th, all employees, this was this past Monday, yesterday, returned to their normal work schedule at their in-person work location. The only exception to that was anybody that had a medical vulnerability, and that continues to be the only exception that we're providing. They have to contact HR, but also let their supervisor, contact HR with regard to those medical vulnerabilities to discuss any options that might be available to them. Effective next Monday, June 14th, city facilities will fully reopen to the public. And then on June 21st, DMV Select, which has been operating downstairs in the old dispatch lobby area of the police department, will return to the Commissioner of Revenue's office. To accommodate that, on June 17th, which is the prior Thursday, which is actually a statewide day that all DMVs will be taken down for the day. So we will move the DMV equipment on the 17th from its current location back to the Commissioner of Revenue's office and have it set up and ready to be running on that Monday, the 21st, back in its normal spot. We will continue to operate a permit center downstairs for individuals coming in, and we'll just move staff from the back office that they were occupying to where the DMV Select was, and we'll take permits in that area so contractors don't have to go all the way to the 3rd floor to do that. As I stated earlier when we had the discussion about your interviews with regard to the school board position, when the state of emergency expires on the 30th, which the governor's indicated that he is going to allow to happen, at that point in time, we will have to return to in-person council meetings. And Ms. Robinson, and I can't think of this code section right off the top of my head, but right now we're able to do virtual meetings because of the pandemic and the state of emergency. And once that ends, that condition is no longer in effect. So therefore we'll have to go back in person at that point in time. You'll have to have a quorum in place, and the state code requirements for meetings that were existed prior to come back into effect. So there has to be a reason for you not to be at the meeting. You can participate remotely, but we won't be doing virtual meetings like we're doing right now. So we're anticipating the July 13th, we will be back in council chambers for an in-person council meeting at that point in time. That doesn't prohibit council from voting yourself to want to go back earlier, but based on the timeline that we have from that right now from the governor, that's when we're anticipating we will not have a choice of going back. So that's just an overview of what we're doing from reopening the buildings perspective and returning back to I don't know that we'll call it normal, but getting back to some level of normalcy. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Altman. Counselor Pelham?
Yes, we did pass a rule that we can remotely attend meetings, correct? And be counted present. Isn't that in our rules now? Madam Mayor or Attorney, anybody know? Can't
Ms.
remember.
Thank you, Mayor Bennett. No, ma'am, that rule is not in our council rules. We had adopted a policy that permits remote participation for members if certain conditions were met. And one of those would include that you had not utilized the provision more than, I think, 2 occasions in the prior 12 months. And there has to be also a reason for your inability to be present at the meeting. And that has to be stated on the record, among other things. So it's not quite the same degree of discretion and freedom that the meetings have afforded, but there are instances where you will be able to participate remotely, including voting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right. And I'll give you back the floor, Mr. Altman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The next item this evening is authorization from request of authorization from council to demolish 706 North 21st Avenue. The city owns this structure. If you're familiar with the Appomattox Cemetery, it's the White House across the street from the cemetery, white one-story building. What we're requesting this evening, because it's a city-owned building, is just authorization to tear it down, where as we move into the new budget year and there's funding available, if there's funding available at the end of this year, to go ahead with that. But because it is a city-owned building, we are requesting authorization to demolish that building. And we felt that given council's desire to move forward with improvements and with regard to property maintenance and emphasis on the rental inspection program, we couldn't think of a better way to signify our support of that than removing a piece of property from that we have on our property rolls that is in not the best of shape, and also some concern with regard to any liability that would have on us from an insurance perspective. So with potential reduction, not a great deal, but I know that we've had instances in the past where our insurance carrier has told us that they will not continue to cover a building, that we would need to make changes. So in order to avoid that, we're just seeking approval this evening to move forward with tearing down the building at the appropriate time.
Counselor Denton?
Yes, I would like to make a motion. The city council authorize the demolition of 706 North 21st Avenue, which is now vacant.
Second.
Motion has been made by Counselor Denton, seconded by Vice Mayor Parton. I see Counselor Pelham's hand for discussion. Counselor Pelham?
On the write-up, I don't see where there's a cost for the demolition. When you not include that, or you didn't get an estimation?
Typically, a building such as this costs us in the neighborhood of $5,000 to $7,000 per demo. We don't have a cost estimate at this point in time for this specific property, but we did want to go ahead and get authorization to be able to move forward with demolition. And we'd utilize existing funds. We wouldn't come back and ask council for an appropriation, a new appropriation. We'd use an existing budget line item to take care of the demolition.
Counselor Pelham, did that satisfy your question?
Yes, I'm sorry, I had to step away from it. Yes.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Parton, you have your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Altman, for putting this on the demolition list and putting it on the agenda. For those that don't know, this house is an absolute eyesore along 21st Avenue. And not only is it an eyesore itself, but it's also a vacant, derelict house that also houses where some individuals have done drugs over there and other sorts of nefarious activity. And so I think definitely demolishing this would be a great improvement to the neighborhood and also to the gateway into our city. So thank you so much.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Did this Mrs. Griffin take priority of the other buildings that were on the demolition list? Was this moved up or was, because I know the one on Dale Rose has been on this list probably longer than this house. Did it push my house out the way?
Mr. Altman?
No, ma'am. We're not pushing the Delrose house out of the way. We just know that we need to get council authorization to demo the house. So we're not superseding another home. We just need to get this done. So when we do have available funding, we'll move forward with that. And we've got to bring back the blighted properties list to council again for reapproval. So we're working on that to bring that to you guys.
Counselor Pelham, did that satisfy your question?
No. Was this house on that list that we already approved through Ms. Griffin's office?
I don't believe this house was on the list.
I don't either. That's my question.
But it's
So
not gonna
bring this back if we've already approved demolition of everything with those houses that were on there. Why we have to reapprove it?
Well, go ahead, Ms. Griffin.
Yes, hi, good evening, Mrs. Pelham. So the house that you have now was on the list in April. There were 4 houses on the list in April. This house happens to be owned by the city. The other 3 houses, we have been speaking with the building official. He has talked to Ms. Robinson, and there are some advertisements that we have to do prior to bringing those back. If I'm looking back in my notes, the houses on the list were 2100 West City Point Road, 905 Arlington, 420 South 18th, and then this 706 North 21st Avenue. And that was presented on April the 13th. So we will be bringing back the other 3 homes after we go through the advertisements that are required. But the 706 was brought back because it is city owned. The house that you're speaking of on Delrose, I believe it was the one that's a duplex, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you recall that one, we were having some issues in demolishing one section and not demolishing the other unit.
Wow.
So we had not planned to demolish that particular.
So you're gonna make the person upgrade their apartment and gonna stay boarded up for the next 20 years?
Well, I doubt it would stay boarded up for the next 20 years, but there's no if there's no, how can I say this? There's no policy or there's no code against it being boarded. We can revisit the owner and see if they plan on making any changes to it or any improvements to it. But the fact that it's boarded, if it had windows that were taken out, boarding is what they would actually do by code.
And is there any way that can be changed by code?
We can look into that. I can't give an answer of yes or no definitely tonight, but we can look into that.
Ms. Pelham, I would adventure that Ms. Griffin and the building official are citing section of the statewide uniform building code and the property maintenance code. So we probably wouldn't have the ability locally to change that because that's the state enabling
That was
legislation.
local. Because we talked about boarding one time, and I think that was local. I don't think that's state. But check it out and let me know.
Mhm.
And try to think of maybe talk with the attorney and y'all get and see if there's any other remedy duplexes, because that's been a 15. It's been there a long time.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. That's number 2.
Thank you, Counselor Pelham. I don't, Counselor Pelham, you have, okay. I don't see any other hands. Roll call, please.
Counselor Pelham,
Yes.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Counselor Randolph,
Yes.
Counselor Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pardon,
Yes.
Counselor Denton.
Yes.
Mayor Bennett, you have 6-0. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. I'll turn it over again to Mr. Altman.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor. The fifth item this evening on your agenda is an update of the Cameron Foundation grant for Policy Systems and Environmental Approach to address health disparities. Ms. Griffin is here this evening to provide council with an overview and a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Bennett and Vice Mayor Parton and all members of City Council. In August of 2020, the Planning Department, as a member of a collaborative team, applied for the Policy Systems and Environmental Approach to Address Health Disparities, which is a grant offered by the Cameron Foundation. The grant team includes Dr. Cliff Morris, cardiologist, Counselor Jasmine Gore, and Stacy Despier of the Crater Health District, and myself. The purpose of the grant is to cross-link comprehensive city and community resources to improve the quality of life of all of our Hopewell citizens, with a focus on those facing social and economic disadvantages. The grant was due on August the 27th of last year, and we were notified on August 28th that the Cameron Foundation Board had selected our proposal as an award recipient. The City Council was informed of our grant in November 10th of last year, and we provided a memorandum and the grant proposal at that particular meeting. In February of 2021, the grant team came back to Council to provide an update of our work thus far. And at that time, Dr. Morris presented our plan to you. And also he provided the 75% complete workout plan. We've now completed that plan, and we provided the award letter from the Cameron Foundation and the workout plan that has been approved by the Cameron Foundation. As promised, we wanted to give that back to you and have you review that and see if you had any questions for us. I am able to answer any questions. I did not want to go through all of the workout plan, for it's fairly lengthy, but again, able to answer any questions that you may have on next steps and any of the goals, objectives, and activities that are outlined in the plan. And welcome and to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Griffin. Counselor Denton?
Yes, Ms. Griffin, I noticed the grant is for $50,000. And in that grant, the Cameron Foundation has specified certain ways of spending that money. And one I noticed was for a position. That $50,000, how is that going to be spent? Are we looking at hiring someone for that position? Or how are we going to finance this?
The $50,000 is the entire award from the Cameron Foundation. And so the grant team is proposing to hire a consultant to work on implementing the grant. We also, as a part of the objectives of our workout plan, is to look for other funding sources, and we've already started to do that. And that's outlined in the workout plan. This would not be we're not looking for this to be a position that's added to any city department, but a contractor's position for the 50,000 over the 18 months.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Counselor Pelham. Counselor Pelham.
Also, I just want to convey to Ms. Griffin and the other committee, would you let them know that y'all did, seem like to me, an outstanding job in getting everything together. So the position that's coming on will just take this plan and start coordinating and implementing the different phases.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Y'all is needed. Okay. It sounds like a good plan to do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands. Roll call, please.
Counselor Pelham,
Yeah.
Mayor Bennett.
I'm sorry, I had my hand up.
I just scrolled down and saw it.
I didn't want to vote until I got to mention. Ms. Griffin, thank you, as Councilor Pelham said, for y'all doing all this work. The one thing that I'm unsure of and was unclear about was the appropriation of the $50,000 was to initiate this program. This program is something that we want long-term, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this program is going to be initiated out of your area, or where? Where is this program going to sit in terms of long-term setup with the city?
That is a question that has to be answered at this time. The funding is not in place for a long-term position. We hope to have that, but
I guess, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I guess my question is, have you all done any long-term feasibility in setting up this program, or has it just been short-term?
the program that we have set up thus far goes out 18 months.
Right.
And one of the objectives of the program is to provide for long-term and looking in the future and how it will be housed. And that's where the funding comes into place. We know that $50,000 really won't go far. And that's why we started asking different organizations for additional funding. And one of the objectives is sustainability over time, and that'll be one of the areas that the program manager will have to help us build out. And we also plan to have various partners with this particular project. And so with those partners coming on, we hope to also get ideas on how this would be a long-term program and long-term position.
And understood, and clearly understand that you all are working forward. Now, to have a manager that we hire just to run this program, help to look at sustainability, is kind of a mixed bag, because that person's job depends on the sustainability. So I guess, what performance standards are you putting into the project to capture the goals that you're trying to achieve? And you may not have an answer for that yet, and that we may need to talk to you again about the expectations of how in the next 18 months you all need to let us know how it's going, what's working, what's not, because I don't want to get to the end of 18 months of funding, or for however long it lasts, and find out that you all have not been able to find a way to interest the community and keep it sustainable at the last minute. And so I ask that you keep that into consideration and keep council involved, because we are going to have to add this to the budget as we move out of the funding that we're getting from Cameron. And so keep us abreast of that so that we know and can plan for that future cost.
Yes, I totally agree, Councilor Randolph, and we've started discussing that. That's actually objective 8 and 9. So objective 8 is to integrate, research, evaluate, and provide data systems into this project. And it goes through and it lists several activities on how we're going, actions and tasks. And then objective number 9 is to implement accountability structures for the project with internal and external partners. We give a date of doing that and talk about creating shared metrics, establish oversight and management systems, connecting to existing processes, developing a reporting structure method to relay policy recommendations, establishing an equitable budget building and financial transparency, identifying incentives and or stipends for community participation in neighborhood councils. So we totally agree with you, and we have put that into our workout plan and plan to start that process in the beginning, early stages of January of 2020. Of course, it can start before then, but with all the things that are listed here and all the objectives, that is when we have that forecast to begin.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Counselor Denton, you have your hand up?
Hey, no, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Best, will you please restate the motion prior to us calling roll again?
Yeah, I was actually, it was an update on the Cameron Foundation grant, but actually, I apologize, Ms. Griffith, if you could give me the verbiage. I'm not sure what the actual motion was. I didn't.
There
didn't
isn't a
catch that.
motion on the floor at this point in time.
I didn't think so. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. I must have thought about something else. All right, so there's no motion for this. There's no action needed for this evening for the update on Cameron Foundation grant?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Moving on, Mr. Altman.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor, members of council. This evening we have your the FY21, F22 operating budget resolution for the city. This is the culmination of our work sessions over the past few months with regard to the city's budget and the budget resolution. Our budget resolution includes several component units of the city to include schools. This year, the overall operating and capital budget appropriation is $180,848,289 across 31 funds. This is an increase of $8,821,095, or approximately a 5.13% increase over the total FY21 budget. The proposed general operating fund, which is where we live every day, is approximately $54,328,648, which is an increase of $1,710,971, or 3.5% over the FY 2021 general operating fund. I've talked to several of you with regard to the budget. As we know, schools are beginning this year with the extended calendar in July. So they need to be able to move forward with getting their contracts signed and out to their teachers. And there were several items that we discussed, but with them, as far as their increase, their request, the 5% raise of that, that $1.9 million, about $280,000 of that is a city commitment. The remainder of the money is coming from the state. There was a $30,000 request for special education compliance officers, increasing the 5 positions from a 210-day to a 230 days, 2 additional special ed teachers, and then of course their health insurance increase. This evening we have in our budget, as we've had in prior years, and it's been our practice over the past few years, $12.2 million of a transfer from the general fund to the school's budget. And then we come back traditionally in July and do a supplemental appropriation for the remainder of those funds. As we discussed during the budget process and during work sessions, we've typically used funds from audits that were savings from the schools and transfer those monies back to schools to make that happen. And I know there were several requests of council members with regard to where school savings came from, and schools is working to identify that for us. And so there's options here. One, we know that we hope that they don't spend $12 million in a month. If they do, we're all in trouble. But with that appropriation, that allows them to move forward with their fiscal year, and we can do the supplemental appropriation, and that can be done at any point in time during the fiscal year. And Dr. Hackney and I discussed potentially doing a portion of that appropriation in July and then coming back in December for similar requests. And during that time, them getting the information together that council had requested on previous year's actual expenditures and current year's expenditures to date. I think we need to let schools know what items council is supportive of as we move forward, so they know how to move forward with their contracts and for their budget. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have of me with regard to the budget. The city budget does include the 2.5% raise authorized by council for employees. It does include the 5% raises for state positions through the comp board. It does include the positions that were authorized, the conversion of the 2 part-time positions to 1 full-time position for the animal control custodian, the Munis position in IT, Ms. Griffin's position for the rental inspector, and it includes the lab tech position down at Hopewell Water Renewal, and that's in the enterprise fund piece, so that doesn't have an effect on the general fund. We've included all those, we balanced the budget presentation to council's consideration this evening. Again, any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Councillor Denton and then Councillor Randolph.
Yes, I would like to move that we approve the proposed FY22 City of Hopewell budget and the budget resolution.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councillor Denton, seconded by Councillor Randolph. Are there any hands for discussion? Councillor Pelham. Councillor Pelham.
I would like to step away from the conversation and discussion and abstain from this vote.
What?
Thank you. Councillor Pelham has declared that she is stepping away from this vote due to her conflict of interest, and she does have a conflict of interest form on file. Thank you, Councillor Pelham. Vice Mayor Parton.
Thank you. Mr. Altman, I know that we've talked multiple times about this, and unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable with voting in favor of this budget. I know that we have American Rescue Act funds that are, going to soon be coming available to us that I think will help us with our capital improvement plan. But unfortunately, that's only one-time money that we'll get in our lifetime. And I really do believe that we need, as a city, to look more seriously into beefing up and making our capital improvement plan a lot more robust. I believe it was last year that we had a $1.2 million capital plan, and this year it's only $1 million. So I mean, we went down, I believe, $200,000, and I mean, it's hard to swallow when we have roads in this city that haven't been paved in over 40 years. We still have utilities that need some serious upgrading. We've got neighborhood flooding issues. I believe Mr. Badiata, before he left the city of Hopewell, I think he identified somewhere between 15 and 20 majorly flooding issues in neighborhoods. And I really think that we need to more aggressively attack those problems. And I think that it's only going to get done when we start including revenues from our city's funds and not just relying on stormwater fee money. And I also think that we should have probably looked at adding another police officer to our force, being that we last year we did hire an additional 2 police officers, but we wanted to work towards getting those 8 police officers, so that way we could strengthen our police department and have more patrolling. Right now I just don't feel comfortable with voting in favor of this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gore.
Sorry, I am arriving a little bit later to the meeting. And if you hear a noise in the background, please forgive me. Really quickly, I just wanted to share that I unfortunately cannot support tonight's budget. I have the same feelings I had last year during the budget cycle in regards to hoping to have plans that match the strategic plan with funding so we can show how we're investing in the community based off of their feedback. I also feel like we should have some more information regarding stormwater projects and what's going on in the community in regards to flooding. And then most importantly, I do strongly feel that in regards to our ward funds, having that issue last year, but then also our investments so we can get the education participation that we need because we still are coming out of the pandemic. But then the last part of that is in regards to the budget in particular, really looking at the positions that we are funding. I'm glad to see in this year's budget that we are paying for the munis person and the rental inspection program person. Last year, I advocated very, very hard for those 2. They didn't make it, but this year they are. So I'm glad to see that. But I also feel like we should have someone for broadband, look at the fire department and some other needs. Fortunately, I can't support it, but I do thank everyone for their hard work on this budget cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands for discussion. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ben, I think Councilor Denton has her hand up.
Excuse me, Councilor Denton.
No, I just, I know we've had several budget meetings, work sessions, and I don't believe this was brought up in any of those meetings. And here we are down to the 9th hour again, and we need to pass this budget so we can move forward. So I am in favor of this budget and will vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands. Roll call, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Yes.
Councilor Randolph,
Yes.
Councilor Holloway,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pardon,
No.
Councilor Gore,
No.
Councilor Denton.
Yes.
Mayor Bennett, you have 4 yes, 2 no. The motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving to the next item, which would be the Preservation Committee. Yes, Ms. Robinson.
That was me, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will the minutes reflect my comments to abstain or whatever the right verbiage is?
Yes, Miss Bess, if you would please add the Miss Pelham's comments.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the Preservation Committee minutes. Counselor Pelham, you did request that we discuss them.
Yes, when I was reading them, Counselor Randolph can answer this question. I was reading wherein you had made a suggestion that you pay for some signage out of ward funds. I don't know if you remember last year, I think you spearheaded us getting rid of the ward funds, and there are no additional. I confirmed with Mr. Altman today that we don't have any ward funds because of the campaign to vote against those. So, and it looks like I had a question about, there's a lot of things that y'all planning to do, but I do thank you in the middle of this for even giving us minutes, because most of the committees don't do that. And you just got reinstated and y'all done that two meetings. So, but is there some other funds that we don't know about or do we have to approve? Because there is no such line in city council budget. Are you talking about a different item?
No,
So how are you gonna pay? I mean, Max, how are you gonna pay for it?
maybe out of my own pocket.
You said ward funds. So I'm saying, does that need to go back and be
Well, at
correct?
that point in time, we hadn't approved council's budget, so I didn't know whether we were going to have them or not.
But
What
it
I
was-
told them is if we had any, we could possibly pay for it out of that. If not, then I might pay for it out of my own pocket.
I mean, but you took it out of the budget last year and then suggested go back in all the meetings we had.
No, I didn't, but, and so I couldn't guarantee them it would come out of it. Do the minutes say that I guarantee that it'll be paid for out of the budget, council budget?
It sounds like you were speaking from an affirmative motion, action that you were gonna pay for
I
it out of.
think the minutes reflect that I said maybe we could use ward funds.
You know, we don't have, but if you had remember, like I said, you're the one that spearheaded.
I do remember, but what is the point to your question? I just told you at the point in time that I talked in the minutes, I said we could maybe use ward funds. If not, then I may pay for it myself out of pocket. Does that not suffice for your answer?
I would think that you would go back to make sure the minutes reflect just what you said, because the way I read the minutes, it reflects like we have ward funds. And we don't, you made sure we didn't have ward
Well,
funds.
if we don't have ward funds, then I guess it's not going to come out of ward funds, is it?
Well, you can't make arbitrary statements to the
I'm
committee.
going to call the meeting to order.
Arbitrary statements are made all the time by people on council publicly.
Thing that everybody else.
This was a meeting.
Counselor
I had the floor, Madam Mayor. I just, she interjected. And
Who asked me to answer?
Counselor Pelham and Counselor Randolph.
it's a normal conversation. A question.
I'm going to interject here. We didn't fix the motion. The motion was to complete the meeting up until R6. We did not amend it to extend to R7. So at this time, I would like to
Madam Mayor, I would like, again,
use it, and we can transfer this to unfinished business.
yeah, we can. Okay.
It's not going to change the answer.
It's cheap.
Okay, so the meeting is adjourned.
And you can move it to unfinished business.
Per
Business, not business.
our rules, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
I wish I could